American Survival Wholesale is proud to sponsor this ministry and their efforts to shed light on the issues that face our nation. As a veteran and Christian-owned and operated company, we support the freedom to express these Christian principles. We all understand the importance of being prepared. After witnessing the devastation of Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and the wildfires that affected so many, please support this ministry by clicking on the link below and check out the amazing alt media package for our listeners. Plus, if you use the promo code PNN Radio, that's PNN Radio, you will receive free shipping, a savings of up to $200. Just click on the link below, but please do it today. Your support means so much to this channel.
My dear friend, Derek Gilbert. He is absolutely amazing. Derek Gilbert hosts Skywatch Television. That is a Christian television program. It airs on several national networks, watched all over the nation. And he and his wife, Sharon, and they host that and several other Skywatch television programs, including Sci Friday. I've had the great pleasure of being on all of those programs, and I love it. And Derek has had a professional radio career that we were talking off air. He's had like 37 years in media and radio media as well. And he was in Philadelphia and St. Louis and Little Rock, and right now he is on the Gulf Coast on Freedom Friday. Derek, thank you for joining us today.
And, Carl, I consider this one of the highest honors of my broadcast career. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're so great. You're so kind. My dear friend, and I'll send your check for saying that, too. That was a deal we cut it the other day. If you ever come on my show, you have to say something just like that. Anyway, you passed. Hey, Derek, I love you, man. No, it's great to have you. Hey, Derek, let me just ask you to tell the folks where they can find all of your stuff. Now, folks, at freedomfriday.Carl Gallups on Facebook, we're keeping everything live there as we're on the air. I've got his website up there, but in the meantime, for folks that don't have access to that or riding down the road, I mean, tell folks all the stuff that you have available, newsletters, podcasts, yada, 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 how they can find your shows on YouTube, etc., your website, your blog. I mean, tell people how they can find you, Derek.
Well, my personal website, where I basically put everything that I do, whether it's my own stuff or Skywatch TV, is DerekPGilbert.com. That's DEREK. P is in Paul, my dad's name, Gilbert, DerekPGilbert.com. But, of course, you can find all of the great stuff in the news that Tom Horn compiles for, underreported news items that we think are important at SkywatchTV.com. So either one of those would basically get you to wherever, all the stuff that I'm involved with.
Right. Okay. Well, that is cool. All right. So DerekPGilbert.com. And that's the website that we have posted at freedomfriday.Carl Gallups, folks. All right. Derek P. Gilbert. All right. Well, Derek, so the memo has been released. I purposely didn't really I didn't talk about it at all in the first hour. I'm saving it for this last hour, for you for this segment, and then Brandon Bigby coming up. Tell us about the memo. Tell us what's in it. Tell us why it's important. Tell us what this means. Tell us the message of it. I mean, this is some powerful stuff, and a lot of our people have been listening to it off and on over the radio all day long, or television, or they've been reading about it on Drudge, etc. But a lot of people really don't have a clue what this is about. So break it down for us, Derek.
It would be easy to think, based on what the major media has broadcast about this memo over the past couple of weeks, that this is just another partisan fight between Republicans and Democrats. In a nutshell, this is way bigger than Watergate. This is a much bigger deal than the scandal that was so big it brought down the President of the United States and became the byword for every scandal ever since then. Okay? This is bigger than Watergate. Now, why do I say that? In 1972, the Republicans, the Nixon White House, sent 5 guys over to the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate Hotel, whence the scandal gets its name. They were trying to break into the DNC to get information that they could use in a political way, specifically information against Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers to the New York Times.
Right.
In this case, what we have, according to this memo and according to other information that's come out through testimony in Congress, things that have been leaked information pieced together by sharp-eyed observers on the web. The Obama White House and the Department of Justice in the Obama administration basically weaponized the surveillance capabilities of the National Security Agency and used the FBI's legal authority to spy on the presidential candidate of the opposition party.
Yeah.
Okay, on one hand, Richard Nixon, who went down in history as, Tricky Dick Nixon.
Yeah.
5 guys breaking into Democratic National Committee headquarters to get some dirt. In this case, you've got the National Security Agency and its unmatched surveillance apparatus. Basically, this conversation that we're having, because we're on a phone call, being recorded somewhere, stored by the NSA.
Right.
The NSA's ability to go through all of our email, all of our text messages, all of our tweets, social media posts, etc., all of that collated and saved by the NSA. That's the kind of power that was directed against Donald Trump. And the FBI went to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to get legal cover to do it. Now, the memo prepared by House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes of California, congressman from California, summarizes the data, the information, the evidence. And what it comes down to is this: the FBI and the Department of Justice went to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Now, that's a secret court that authorizes surveillance on American citizens who are believed to have contact with security threats overseas. They used the travel of a volunteer in the Trump campaign named Carter Page, who traveled to Russia a couple of times, as authorization, as justification to go to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to get this warrant to authorize spying on the Trump campaign, basically. But the information that they used was information that had been compiled as opposition research and paid for by the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign. The Department of Justice knew this, the FBI knew this, but they didn't tell the court.
The court, yeah.
The court didn't know that the information it had been given, on which it was asked to judge and authorize a warrant for surveillance, was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign with the intent that it would be used to smear the Republican candidate for president, Donald Trump. According to the memo and the information that was available to Chairman Nunes, the guy who put this together, the former MI6 operative Christopher Steele, was paid $160,000 by the DNC and the Clinton campaign via a high-powered law firm in Washington, D.C. Again, the FBI knew this, the DOJ knew this, but they didn't tell the court. Now, one of the checks on the power of this surveillance ability is that these warrants, these FISA warrants, have to be renewed every 90 days. And according to the memo, this warrant was renewed 3 times. So there were 4 applications made to the FISA court. And in none of those applications was any of this information disclosed to the judges on the court.
So they weren't lying. Well, they were, but I mean, technically they weren't lying to the court. It's just they were withholding vital and contextual information from the court, which is the same thing as lying.
That is key context. The Steele dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier, which contains some very salacious and uncorroborated information. You listeners probably remember when this was published by the news site BuzzFeed a couple of Januaries ago, was part of this dossier.
Yeah.
And again, it was prepared by this gentleman, Christopher Steele, who told an official inside the Department of Justice, the then Associate Deputy Attorney General, a guy named Bruce Orr, and I quote from the memo, Steele said he was, quote, desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president, end quote. Yeah. Again, this is significant. It weighs on the validity of the evidence. But again, even though this evidence was available to the Department of Justice and the FBI, it was not made available to the court in any of the applications for the warrants.
Unbelievable. And it's my understanding, too, Derek, that not only was the vital contextual information withheld from the court, but when this dossier was presented to the court as, evidence, foundational evidence for why we need this FISA approval, the spying approval, not only that, but they also referred to what am I trying to say? Mainstream media reports wherein leaks from the dossier had already made it to the mainstream,
Right.
They presented that to the court as further evidence. I mean, it's like circular reasoning. It's circular reporting. And the whole time they did this, they withheld from the FISA judges that this whole thing is salacious, and it was paid for by Hillary Clinton. And the dude that put it together probably lied about it all because he hated Donald Trump and didn't want him to be president. That's some important context, Derek.
Exactly right. Now, and the reason this is important to your listeners that we need to make this point clear, if the government of the United States, and regardless of which party is in the White House, I don't care if it's a Republican or Libertarian, it doesn't matter.
Neither.
This kind of power should never be wielded against American citizens.
Absolutely.
The fact that this could be done against one of the wealthiest men in the country who then became the President of the United States, elected President of the United States, and these characters were still working behind the scenes to try to hamstring him. If they could do this to Donald Trump, they could do this to me and you. The big difference is that nobody would ever hear about it if they do it to Carl Gallups or Derek Gilbert.
Right. Yeah. This is just unbelievable. It is earth-shattering. It is universe-shattering. I'll use the words that Mike Zullo used in the birth certificate investigation, and you don't have to comment on this if you don't want to. And folks, I am convinced, based upon a lot of stuff that I know, and a lot of stuff that's already been revealed to you through Mike Zullo here on Freedom Friday, but a lot of stuff that I know and that Mike Zullo knows and Sheriff Arpaio and the other people that have been a part of all of this, we know that in my humble opinion, based upon everything I know, that birth certificate is foundational to a lot of what's happening now with this whole thing. I mean, they had to stop and shut down Donald Trump. They could not let him get in office. They did not want him in office for a variety of reasons. But one of them is Donald Trump, Derek, is the man that stuck his finger in Obama's chest in 2010 and 2011 and dared him to identify himself publicly. And when Obama did, the document, the only document ever seen by the public that was put on the White House website, has now been proven in a 5-year forensic investigation to be an absolute fabrication from the ground up. And I say to our listeners, now that you see that the DOJ, the FBI, the Obama White House, the Hillary Clinton machine were all involved with British intelligence agents, former, building a fake document to take down a man, can you now believe that they would also build a fake document to install their man in the White House?
Mm-hmm. No, I have no doubt of that. In fact, I interviewed a gentleman not long ago, actually a friend of mine now for several years, but I didn't realize he was working on this research at the time, co-author of a book called The Fuddy Hoax, F-U-D-D-Y.
Okay, hold it right there.
Yeah.
Let's take this time out because that's fascinating, and I want you to have the whole time to talk about that, okay?
Will do.
Okay, good. Folks, we're going to take a quick time out. More with Derek Gilbert. We're going to talk about Loretta Fuddy. Derek Gilbert has a friend who's investigated that from top to bottom. You don't want to miss this because it all ties together, folks. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's what I've been trying to tell you for years. I think now you get it, and you probably already did, but you surely get it after the release of this memo. We'll be right back. All right, folks, thank you for coming back. Welcome back, and welcome back, Derek Gilbert. Listen, I'm going to hush. You pick up where we left off because you were getting ready to get into some deep water, no pun intended. Go.
Well, a friend of mine who has co-authored a book that I was not aware he was researching when we were actually singing together back in Illinois. We moved down here to the Ozarks, and then he got in touch about 6 months ago. He's co-authored a book called The Fuddy Hoax, F-U-D-D-Y. Now, Loretta Fuddy was the then director of the Department of Health in the state of Hawaii. She was the one who issued the birth certificate, the alleged birth certificate that was supposed to prove Barack Obama's being a natural-born citizen.
Yeah.
There was a crash that took place of a small airplane some years ago, and I'm forgetting the exact date. I believe it was 2013, December of 2013, if I remember correctly. But the point of this was that when this small plane crashed off an island of Hawaii, there were a number of passengers on this small commuter plane, but the only one who died, and it crashed just maybe a couple hundred yards offshore, it was not that far from shore, was Loretta Fuddy, the one person responsible for releasing this birth certificate. But like so many other things we've heard about in recent American history, the official story of the crash doesn't line up with the actual evidence. Hugo Fugan was the co-author, along with Nellie Ristvet, who's done a lot of the background research and the forensic research of the available evidence. There's some video that came out from the passenger who was on the plane, pictures that were taken of people in the water, the location of the crash not matching up with where the pilots said the plane crashed, etc., which begs the question then, if the official story doesn't match the actual physical evidence of the crash, then what else about the story might not be true? And what's the significance of this one particular person dying in this particular crash?
Yeah, what's the significance of that? Yeah.
So Hugo does a much better job of documenting this and explaining it than I can, but it was really eye-opening to me, because when the crash occurred several years ago, I was suspicious, but I also know the Internet has a tendency to rush to judgment. It takes about 2 minutes for anything tragic to happen before somebody's on the web saying it's a false flag.
Right.
But Hugo calls this the Rosetta Stone of deep state hoaxes, because when you pull on this thread, if this unravels, then a lot unravels. And as you say, if Donald Trump's insistence that Barack Obama prove that he's a natural-born citizen, and if this document that Loretta Fuddy produced is not in fact accurate, and she's the person then who is the only one of this plane that landed rather gently in very calm water on a warm day. It wasn't like they were freezing in the water or anything like that. Why was she the only person to succumb, to die in that particular crash?
And so, Barack Obama was in Hawaii when it all happened.
I would recommend people check out the book. The Fuddy Hoax is the website. The Fuddy Hoax, TheFuddyHoax.com. I've got a copy of the book. It is very detailed, and I know Hugo. He's a brilliant man, and not one to jump out on a limb with half-baked evidence. This is significant. So, what does all of this mean? Trying to tie this back into the memo and the evidence that we have of deep state surveillance. I mean, I think this is deeper, Carl, than a Democrat-Republican thing. This just shows the power and the lengths that the deep state is willing to go to keep their hold on power. Donald Trump is an existential threat to the deep state in Washington, D.C., the elite class in Washington, D.C. If they can do this to a Donald Trump, they can do this to you and me. Look at some of the other events that have occurred that are evidence of malfeasance and abuse of power within the Department of Justice. The case against Cliven Bundy, the rancher in Nevada, where they had that standoff a couple of years back. The case was tossed out by a judge who said that the activity of the Department of Justice in this case was basically made it impossible to have a fair trial. Evidence that could have been exculpatory to the Bundys was not given to the defense. You've got the case in Texas, where a judge there ordered then Attorney General Loretta Lynch to have all attorneys working for the Department of Justice to go through ethics classes because of the activity of the attorneys working for the Department of Justice. They appear to believe they're operating under a different set of rules, and that is not
right.
The type of activity that's taken place in this case and what has come out through this memo, this type of unconstitutional abuses of power, quite frankly, are the kinds of things that the framers of the Constitution, the men who wrote the Declaration of Independence, went to war to put an end to. Yeah. And now here we are today in 2018, and we're listening to the mainstream media try to marginalize this and say, well, this is just politics. The Republicans are trying to put one over on the Democrats, and this is nothing.
And not just the mainstream, not just the mainstream media, but James Comey, the ex-FBI director. He's out there he's lambasting it. Basically, here's his message: you need to leave the FBI alone. We're untouchable. We're unimpeachable. This is just a political thing. I mean, and the evidence is right there.
Yeah. The fact that that's James Comey's response says a lot more about Mr. Comey and the depth of the swamp that needs to be drained than it does about this incident and the evidence.
I agree. Absolutely blown away. Oh my gosh. Well, Derek, I really appreciate your brilliant analysis. It really is. I use the word brilliant. I'm not trying to embarrass you. It really is. You have a great gift for taking complex topics, breaking them down on the radio, and explaining them in your voice for people to understand. And that's an amazing gift. And you're a dear friend. I'm so thankful that you were here today. Talk to us very quickly about Dallas and how people can use your code to get a discount. Tell us.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, it's the Hear the Watchman Conference, March 22nd through the 25th in Dallas. Carl will be the opening speaker, and I get to follow Carl, which is a tough act, but I'm up for the challenge. It's a wonderful event, a great gathering of speakers, and a wonderful gathering of believers. If you're interested, you can save $20 off of the registration by using the promo code Gilbert20, Gilbert20. Of course, you can use Gallups 20 as well and get the $20 off. There's also going to be a video feed available, and you can get 20% off by using the promo code Gilbert20 as well. The
Good
website to sign up is hearthewatchmen.com.
All right, good deal. We got to go. We're got to get out of here.
The Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments.
Billions around the planet are witnessing a world in the grasp of sadistic spiritual darkness. This unholy alliance has infected our governments, our religious institutions, and our societies. The world appears to be unraveling. But can the evil behind these dark supernatural forces be defeated? Is everything playing out just as the Bible predicted it will in the final days? At last, you can know the answers to mankind's most urgent questions and learn your destiny among today's events in the new, unprecedented work taking the prophecy world by storm. Gods and Thrones, Nakash, Forgotten Prophecy, and the Return of the Elohim by best-selling author, former decorated law enforcement officer, and senior pastor Carl Gallups. This changes everything. Available now wherever fine books are sold.